More Westerners and more people than ever are looking to citizenship by investment as a great way to protect themselves and give themselves options. But what happens when you want to come back to your home country using that Caribbean citizenship? I'm going to tell you how it works. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. Now, I want to be clear. Citizenship by investment has been very popular in the last couple of years. More people than ever looking for a plan B, looking to leave their home country, looking to expand their options. Now, if you are Canadian and you get a Caribbean citizenship, most Canadians are going to keep their Canadian citizenship and they'll continue to come home on their Canadian citizenship. But I got a question from an American lady recently who asked about the possibility of becoming a citizen of the Caribbean. You can do that in a matter of months through their citizenship by investment programs, giving up her U.S. citizenship to free her from the restrictions of U.S. citizenship, and then trying to come back. Her question is, if I obtain CBI in a Caribbean country and then renounce, how many months can I spend in the U.S. each year with a visa? Add-on question from another commenter asked, what happens if you give up your U.S. citizenship but still have family and friends here you want to visit? Is it possible, harder, or impossible? What does it entail? Do you need to get a visa just to travel through the U.S. on a layover? And so I want to address these questions because I think there's a lot of misconception about this. And I'll tell you, the misconception was very apparent to me a couple weeks ago when over the holidays I met a friend. And he was saying, hey, all these Americans you work with who give up their citizenship, you know, how do they come back to the U.S.? Do they just kind of come back for a short period of time so that they don't really need a visa? Basically, my friend didn't understand that to go to a country, even for an hour, even for a day, you need to get a visa. And the United States is one of the most difficult countries in the world to get a visa for. I've had a number of Europeans who, for the first time ever, have said, we're considering giving up our citizenship, people from countries like Germany. Now, it's a lot easier in Europe because there are so many in the European Union, golden visas, freelance visas, self-sufficient visas, you know, citizenship programs. You could become, you know, a citizen of another country, a resident. I mean, you could be a tourist on a Caribbean passport. There's so many options if you are, for example, European. For the United States, the vast majority of countries in the world need a visa to come to the United States. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm just coming for a wedding. Why? Well, because in a lot of countries, that is the go-to excuse to try and bamboozle the embassy into giving you a visa. Oh, I'm just here for a wedding. And the embassy workers all know, like, yeah, okay, that's what they all say in this particular country. They think we don't know that they're going to go and to the wedding, and then we're going to see them, you know, 6 months later with an illicit job digging ditches under the table. And so getting a U.S. visa is no joke. And so if you obtain, let's just go with the question, a Caribbean citizenship, you give up your U.S. citizenship, there's going to be a couple factors that are involved. First of all, and whether you even get the visa, let alone how many months a year you can stay there. Number one, where are you living? You probably have an easier time if you're living somewhere where they're used to giving people visas, or where it's a little bit more, you know, or where the population can go to the U.S. Without a visa. So, you know, if you moved to Pakistan, for example, that embassy is probably used to rejecting a lot of people, and I wouldn't really suggest it. You know, if you are in London, then perhaps it's a little bit easier. But, you know, the challenge with getting a visa to any country is there is some kind of human issue, especially in a higher level country like the U.S. or something similar, where they're going to look at this and it might be, we don't like this Caribbean passport. Now, the technical standard to get a U.S. visa is you have to prove non-immigrant intent. How do they know that you're going to leave when your visa is over? But certainly, you know, that can be open to interpretation. Now, let's say you get a visa. Again, Caribbean citizenship, you need to go to the embassy, you need to get a visa. To answer the second question, even if you're just flying through the U.S., you go through immigration. There's no sterile transit in the United States. So it's not like many countries where you're simply flying through and you never leave airside. In the U.S., you do. You've got to recollect your luggage. You've got to get through customs. You've got to do the whole deal. And so you can get a separate transit visa, but there's no simple, hey, I'm just flying through. They're going to want to see your U.S. visa, and they're not going to let you on the plane if you don't have one, if you're just flying, let's say, from Mexico City to Barcelona through New York, right? They're just not going to allow that. And so, getting that visa is potentially going to be more difficult. And again, it depends on maybe how old you are you married? And there's many different factors, not all of which are disclosed, but we could go into. Now, let's say you get the visa, B1, B2 visa, that's what you would get. Now, what the person didn't ask is, what if they subsequently, find that their grandparent is Irish and they become an Irish citizen? Well, that's going to be a different situation. Then there's no visa to actually get in the embassy as long as you are of good character. So if you have the B1, B2, you're generally going to get 6 months. Now, as with any country, when you come to the United States, they can give you 6 months, they can give you 2 days, they can really do whatever they want, but let's just assume you get 6 months in the country. If you are coming with the Irish passport, the Portuguese passport, the Taiwanese passport, what have you, on what's called ESTA, you're going to get 90 days. So you actually get less time in the U.S. being on what's called the Visa Waiver Program through an ESTA than you would on a B1, B2 visa. Now the question is, how long can you spend in the U.S.? What you want to consider is if you renounced your citizenship, forget if you did it for tax reasons or for whatever reason you did it, even if you don't mind paying taxes, why would you want to give up a citizenship of a country and then come back and fall back into the tax net? And so this is where there's a number of factors. This is not tax advice, but depending on where you live, depending on where you pay taxes, if anywhere, that will affect how long you can spend in the United States before you end up paying taxes again. And it could be, for some people who are just expatriating, it could be a rather minimal amount of time. It could be an average 4 months. There are some people for whom it could be close to 6 months. And I've seen and I've heard stories from tax attorneys of where in extraordinary cases, it could be more than 6 months. So it depends on a number of other factors in your personal tax profile. But generally speaking, spending 3 to 4 months a year in the U.S. Is perhaps what's recommended. Again, not giving tax advice, not giving immigration advice, but the idea being that if you were to spend your whole B1, B2 visa in the US every year, potentially there could be some other consequences, not on the immigration side, but on the financial side. So ESTA and an actual visa work a little bit differently. And so you want to understand both the immigration side and the tax side in terms of how much time you can spend in the country. Ultimately, it's the same in any country, and I think people should be aware of this, especially people who are giving up TRA passports. While generally what is written in the law is what you get, immigration officers can issue whatever you want. That's been a topic recently out of Mexico, for example, where people think, hey, I'm just going to come for 6 months and hang out. They buy some return ticket for 2 months later, but they intend, hey, maybe I'll extend my stay. And then now in Mexico, they're asking, how long are you going to stay? And they, 2 months? Okay, well, 2 months. Well, I thought the law says 6 months. Well, the law says I get to determine what you get as the border officer. And so that's increasingly happening. Is that going to happen in the U.S.? Maybe. That could happen where they say, listen, okay, you've got a return ticket for 10 days. Sure, we'll go with that. And so it's always at someone's discretion. Just the fact that most times you go to a country, whether as an American or as a St. Lucian, they give you the time in the sheet, doesn't mean you can't be asked questions. I've gone to London and, if you said you were spending the 180 days that you're supposed to get, visa free to the UK, and, they'd say like, what? Why? What are you doing here? Are you living here? You got a job? What's going on? I mean, I'm a digital nomad is probably not going to excite them. I mean, so understand those parameters. Understand that a U.S. visa is not necessarily a foregone conclusion for someone who has expatriated. You'd think that you could demonstrate non-immigrant intent by renouncing. There's a whole series of potential issues there. But if you do get in, it depends on, of course, the length of the visa, ESTA versus the B-series visa, and it also depends on your personal tax situation so that you don't end up creating problems for yourself there. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.